So recently on the channel, I've been exploring IEMs as, a product category and trying to understand what really makes a good IEM and the main differences from good sound and bad sound and what my preferences are. And the latest video that I did was about the 7Hz Timeless AE, what I consider to be a mid to high end type of offering at around 250 euros. And the entire conclusion of that video is you can absolutely get fantastic sound for that amount of money. But what if you're looking to spend a lot less? What if you only have 20 to 40 euros to spend on an IEM? Can you actually get something that sounds very close to that while spending only a fraction of the money? So this is the QE Ears Cadenza and the Tin Hi-Fi C2 Mech Warrior, two different IEMs that at the end of the day share a lot of very common and very important features that make a good sound and that make a good IEM experience. They're both very cheap at around 30 euros, which I think is a very good price point if you're looking to just try something out and see if you enjoy it without, overcommitting and spending too much time. They both feature a very common type of cable, which is the 2-pin cable, which gives you plenty of compatibility if you want to keep a cable for longer or whatever the reason may be. If you break your cable, you can very easily replace it with this being pretty much one of the most common standards in the IEM world. But more importantly, they share the sound profile very closely, and they also share the same difficulties in representing certain frequencies. But all in all, just straight out of the box, just plugging them in and listening to them for a little bit for both music and gaming, they are very good. They are very competent in what they set out to achieve. And at the end of the day, if you know nothing about audio and you just want to buy something that looks interesting, the Tin Hi-Fi is made of CNC aluminum and it feels rugged and well built. And this one is a more delicate approach with like a resin type of plastic, but just a pattern on the outside, and the blue color definitely makes it look sort of like more expensive and premium than you probably are used to, which all that is great when you're just looking to spend 20 to 30 to 40 euros on a pair of IEMs. With both of these, just build quality wise, shape, overall aesthetics, I think it's very difficult to be disappointed. Definitely one of the most difficult things when jumping into IEMs in general or audio equipment of any kind, to be honest, is hearing someone else describe a sound profile and trying to make sense of that and compare it to what you think your personal preference is. But I'll give it my best try. If you don't know how to read graphs, don't worry, but these are the sound graphs of the frequency response graphs of both of these IEMs, and I think it's quite valuable to see it visually and try to understand it visually. But if you pretty much just look at these and compare it to IEF neutral, which is a pretty neutral target response with no bass whatsoever, it is very likely that a lot of IEMs are going to target this sort of sound profile in the market in general. A slightly boosted bass frequencies that give you a little bit of body and overall thump to the sound, which a lot of people, me included, quite enjoy, and makes games with plenty of explosions and just guns in general, makes that sort of sound just pop out and sound really, really good. Whilst at the same time, the bass doesn't bleed onto the mid frequencies, it stays pretty contained. And when it comes to the high frequencies, both of these headphones are probably showing their value here. The bass is nice, the mid frequencies are quite nice, and the overall tone of the sound is quite appealing. But the high frequencies are definitely where they show their value the most. The QE Ears Cadenza right out of the box is a tiny little bit, maybe shouty would be a good way to describe it. Sort of like when the high frequencies come, they sort of come quite abruptly and not super pleasing. But at the same time, you feel like, well, for 35 euros or 30 euros, I mean, what do you expect? And some of it can still be fixed. And the Tin Hi-Fi C2 Mech Warrior, it's pretty much the same deal. Maybe slightly better than the QE Ears Cadenza, but it isn't a massive difference. It isn't something that it's gonna make you listen to one and trash it and love the other one, but it's definitely a handicap. But knowing me and my current sound profile and what I tend to target if I do any sort of EQing to my IEMs, it's very nice to see that both of these IEMs have quite smooth graphs without any crazy sort of like pieces of sound that are too raised or too low. It's quite easy to EQ both of them, which is another great quality to look forward to if you want to experiment with sound profiles. It is much easier to just spend a little bit of time, learn sound graphs, and try to calibrate your frequency response graph to something that you maybe will prefer than it is to just buy multiple different IEMs and experiment that way. I think EQ is a very powerful tool in order to educate you and make you understand what you actually enjoy in sound. And maybe some of your, blind spots and certain things that you never quite heard can be uncovered that way much more effectively than just spending money and buying multiple IEMs. With that said, both of these are quite easy to EQ, and I had absolutely no problem targeting a similar target frequency that I did for my 7Hz timeless AE review, which is mostly IEF neutral with a little bit of a bass boost in the middle, in the beginning, and both of them sound better than they do out of the box. But at the same time, if you're gonna ask me, can you tell the difference between same ear tips, same sound frequency when it comes to just they're all EQ'd to the same target? Can you actually tell the difference when comparing different IEMs, particularly this Tin Hi-Fi C2 Mech Warrior and the QE Ears Cadenza to the 7Hz timeless AEs? And I'm not gonna lie, yes, you can tell the difference, but it's much more subtle than you probably are expecting. And I think, up to an extent, I think I can compare it to with the feeling that you get when you go to like a retailer to shop for a TV and you see multiple TVs side by side, and it's quite easy to just compare them right there in the store and just, settle for something that's maybe a bit more expensive than you were looking for to buy, but the way that they're set up, the brightness levels and the size, you can very easily end up going to a store and feeling like a 65-inch OLED TV is not bright enough or big enough, and you have to settle for something else. When in reality, in your day-to-day life, you're not going to be constantly comparing different IEMs. So to an extent, and this is not like the end-all be-all, to an extent, if you find an IEM and a target frequency that you can enjoy, and the IEM is easy to tune, like both this C2 Mech Warrior and the QE Ears Cadenza both are, you can target your preference of a target frequency response and enjoy the sound as it is. But in comparison to something like the Timeless, you can definitely hear that the sound is smaller, maybe more closed off in your ears. There's less separation between the sounds. It feels like, whereas the 7Hz Timeless, it's much more effortless, the way that the sound comes off. It's much more, I don't even have the words for it. There's definitely something there. That separate a more expensive and in this case better IEM than these budget entries. But I find that in no way should that be a detriment to force you to want to spend more money than you have to spend. Because in reality, if you're just playing games, listening to music, all these IEMs are lovely just right out of the box. And if you're willing to do a little bit of experimentation, you can definitely get the sound to a much better level without having to spend a lot more money. And I think that's a win-win for everyone. I hope all this made a little bit of sense for you. I wanted to make it as real and truthful as I possibly could, and I think having it super structured out doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I had this conversation with friends that asked me about sound in general, and I feel like having it in this sort of dialogue type of way really is valuable in order to, like, as best as possible, express things as they feel, and not try to get too much in the weeds of how they are, technically supposed to be described. Because if you don't have sort of like the vocabulary and the practice and certain key things ironed out, it's all gonna sound too fancy, too pompous, and you're not going to be able to make much with that information. So I think this way is substantially better for this type of video. But you watched it all the way until the end, but you had no interest in IEMs. You just watched it and you wanted to see if there's some feline action at the end of this video, like there was at the end of the previous one and the one before that, and pretty much the last 50-60 videos. Okay, I'll film a clip of my cat Gatsby doing something random for you to enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. I really, really appreciate every single one of you. And if you have any questions of anything, just type it down below. I'm always watching for the comments and always looking forward to ways of interacting with you guys. And yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this type of video as well. More free-flowing and real instead of more ironed out and perfect, or attempting to be perfect. All right, bye.